We are live. Something happened to the little studio, and I said, "Where's our intro? Where's our intro?"
Oh, we didn't even do an intro, did we?
No, we did. Just hopped right on in. Just hopped right on in. We're a little bit behind schedule. And I don't want Nanette to lose her stuff over the fact that we're just a few minutes late.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The platform that we're using, it's kind of exciting because they create this little thing, and they said create your own studio. So I commenced to doing that. So we now have a launch date studio, and I'm working on what all that's going to look like. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
anyhow, how are you, Teri?
I'm good. I was going to say, Nanette is always faithful about, she's like Elizabeth.
Yep.
Elizabeth always will send you a text and go, what's going on? Nanette will always send me a text and go, where are y'all? So
I
we
know.
always have that check in. And I just sent her one back and I was like, we're there, But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I went out and fed the ducks this morning, and last year I had 3. This year I have 10. So they all came
That's
back.
awesome.
They said, go to the lady's house that feeds you. Come on, everybody, go with me. So they're here.
Stay away from the snapping turtles. Stay away from the snapping turtles.
I think by now snappers have already gone under. I
Mm,
think when the water gets cold to a certain level, they burr under the muck in the bottom of the ponds,
yeah.
and they'll sleep there. I read this amazing thing. I might have shared it with you last year sometime, about how they go under the muck, the mud of the water, and they slow their heart rate down until they're
Oh,
almost non-existent, and they just stay there. And so you're not supposed to feed turtles during that time because it it disrupts they can't get back to the surface fast enough, and they're food motivated to eat, and it can kill them. So
oh,
I just let them be, and I feed the ducks on the ground so that you know
yeah, because that's what we do. That's what we do.
yeah.
You got nature just happening where you are. I just love it. Well, I thought it'd be a good time to start opening the can of worms on family dynamic. Some families have those Hallmark sweet, wonderful family things. Some people really do have that. And some people have utter total chaos. And then people who are in recovery, sometimes it's that going back for family gatherings of any sort, and it's trigger, 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 trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a lot of landmines when it comes to family dynamic, and it especially comes up this time of year. Even thinking about this time of year and making your plans sometimes can be triggering for a lot of people. And I realize that trigger is a buzzword, and I'm fine. I don't care. It's what it is. And I just kind of wanted to bring that up about how to deal with some of those family dynamics. And you're really good at kind of putting it into perspective, how to have boundaries with
Yeah.
family.
It well, that you. Let me find my words. I think I just had a small TIA or whatever those are supposed to be. Um, Family boundaries and family dynamics usually needs to be implemented before like an event. Like you have to start ahead of time. Otherwise, it's like a New Year's resolution. You go in there thinking you can go in overprotected. If you're a person that's going into a family dynamic and you're just like, oh, I don't want to be here,
Yeah.
you can go in with too much armor, too much emotional armor on, and it causes bigger issues. So if you implement them months in advance, then it's just another day, and you already are comfortable with how you set your dynamics and your boundaries, and you're comfortable with saying no and no thank you, and we've already had this conversation, let's not go there again, or no, I'll be there at this time, or no, I'm not coming, or whatever the dynamic is that you're in. When you don't practice those things and you wait till that, like, well, I'm only going to have to implement this once or twice a year, then you go
Mm-hmm.
in with too much emotional armor on, and you can just, everything will activate you. You say trigger, I say activate. Everything will
Yeah.
activate you to get you in that place of like, there you go again. There it is. I'm not doing this, and that's unnecessary, you know.
One of the things I say, if you have done your work, and it's been a while since you've done your work, and all of a sudden you're about to experience something that might throw you back into a situation, I always say now's a good time for you to make an appointment with your life coach, your therapist, your person who you did your work with, do a little tweak before you go down there. I mean, this is the
Or your
time.
psychiatrist if you're taking meds. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. Like, whatever it is, like there's, and I don't mean taking meds to deal with your family, but I mean people are anxious, they're overactive brains, they're depressed, there's all kinds of things that go on. And when we're not self-caring for ourselves, if you're not self-caring for yourself, there's no way you'll let someone else self-care for you. So you have to make those appointments ahead of time, get your shit together before you go into, anything, whether it's work, whether it's holidays in general. Holidays in general, as we've talked in the past, Devon, they have this blanket of, not only do a lot of people transition during the holidays, and so families are dealing with that loss and that grief and everything. But then there's also just the reality that there's a vacant seat at the table.
That's
And
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And people, I think we've talked about this a couple of times, like rather than getting in that headspace of, oh, here are the holidays again and kind of thing, celebrate that person. Like they're not going to be, and this sounds harsh, but this is just how I talk with clients. They're not going to be there either way, whether you're upset or whether you're celebrating them. So keep them in their spirit, in that place of, maybe you go around the table. If it's someone that's recent, you go around the table and you share a fun memory or a fond memory of them, keeping that person, in spirit with you. Now, not everybody functions the same way, right? So family dynamics, especially in the holidays, are tricky. You have to know what your boundaries are, and boundaries are not put in place as I double dog dare you to cross this line. They're put in place to educate people on how to treat you. Period. Some boundaries are a little more coarse than other ones. Some can be very soft. Some need to be like, the anvil. They've got to be hard. But boundaries is another one of those things that people are like, I just, talk about boundaries, boundaries, rules, perimeters, preferences, whatever you want to call it, know when you need to say no and when you need to excuse yourself. And, if Uncle John shows up and he's talking politics and you don't want to talk politics, excuse yourself or just politely say, can we change the topic? Or if it's, whatever. I mean, deer hunting or politics or religion or the dog down the street or whatever. Like, learn to expand yourself enough to be able to sit in the presence of someone who you might not necessarily want to have a conversation with them without being activated and feeling like you're just going to go through the roof.
And there is that place in your life when you're an adult human being that if you know that you're going down to a situation that you can't live with, let's say the family dynamic is such that, okay, I'm just going to be real. I went to a family thing. I was a young adult. I was living in New York City, and I went down to a family thing on one side of the family that didn't visit often. But this was the year they won the lottery. That was where everything was going to be. I walked in, and everywhere I looked, there were David Duke signs. David Duke, who ran for president, who is a KKK something, was at one time. And okay, first of all, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they thought anything about anything like that. And I walked in and I said, "What's with the signs?" And they said, "Well, we're the headquarters." And I said, "Well, you guys have a Merry Christmas." And I got in my car and I left. I felt uncomfortable. I felt wrong. I felt like I didn't even know these people. And you know what? It is okay to excuse yourself. And I want to give you permission as adult human beings. If you are in a situation and it's just not something that you want to be a party to in any way, You don't have to cause a big scene, and you don't have to try to convince them to agree with you
100%.
because they're not. Here's the deal.
Absolutely.
They're not. And I guarantee you it hurts your soul more by being there than it does them for you leaving. They'll be just fine. I mean, chances are you've not been a part of their circle in years, or you would have already known they felt that way.
Right.
That's what it was for me. And that was, gosh, that was 35 years ago for me. But, and for those people who are watching, and if you don't have a problem with that, well, that's in your own conscience and your own deal. But it was not something for me. And that could be anything. I mean, I've had that with a friend who had to go back to a family thing for the first time, and her brother, it was an SA situation. She, and for those people, I'm just being delicate. If you know if you know, you know. And her brother was a perpetrator, and she said, I can't sit at the table looking across and pass the turkey to him. And I said, well, guess what? You don't have to. And she's like, well, I have to. It's my family. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You don't have to just because it's your family.
Right. And I think, if we're just going to talk about the elephant in the room, I think this year is going to be that way for a lot of folks. There's going to be a lot of family dynamics. We've just had an election, don't want to get super political, but we've just had an election, and there's a very clear divide. There's going to be a lot of stuff at family gatherings, especially if you have large family gatherings. Unless you're all on the same team, you're going to have some conflict, right? Mm-hmm. So knowing how to resolve that conflict without further creating conflict within yourself,
And there can be crazy conflicts that you don't even, I mean, I've had a friend that referred to herself as, she says, I'm in a mixed marriage. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm an Alabama fan and he's a Georgia fan. And they laughed, but it actually got to be an issue later on in their, when the families would get together, it's such a big rivalry. And I said, well, don't let silly stuff become your rivalry. Don't let silly stuff, and see what you can do. But I said, some of it's actually kind of dangerous. It's dangerous for your psyche. It's dangerous for your well-being to be in a situation that gives you that thing. And you could choose to be elsewhere. Candy joins us. Hi, Candy. How are you? Good to have you there. We got several people who are watching online, and we're glad that you're here. It's this time of year. We do unpack the box of family issues a lot during this time of year, because everybody gets a little anxious. Everybody, I always say this is the first year that some people will have the empty chair at the table. And I know a lot of people in my own circles who have lost a loved one this year. It's a lot. Suzanne just joined us. Hi, Suzanne. But the thought that your family has got to be the go-to place, and there's always the place that everybody goes for Christmas. You can make new traditions. You can choose to do other things. There's a dynamic that I've never had to deal with, but it's a big thing I know so many people have gotten married this year. People, we got through the pandemic and stuff. A lot of people have joined forces this year. Now it's whose family do we visit on which holiday, and where do we go, and how do we do that? I always thought that was so hard to navigate. It's very difficult. How do you work out those kind of things when it's newly paired people?
I don't know that I don't believe that it's that difficult. I think that if you are a mature adult and you're married, or you have a partner, and you as a couple get to decide where you want to go, how are we divvying this up, and then it's having a conversation with your family. Now, if the family gets hurt about it, that's, okay. But the reality is sometimes, it's real easy to slip into feeling guilty because other people's feelings are hurt, when you're just trying to do what's best for you and your partner or your spouse, husband, wife, whatever. And lots of people do that. I think it's very telling of family dynamics when you have a family, or, somebody's like, oh my God, I don't have this conversation, hurt their feelings, and yada, yada, yada. And you get into that whole dynamic when healthier family dynamics just go, hey, we'll see you at Christmas and we'll see you at Thanksgiving. We wish we could be at both places at one time, but we just can't. And that's really where people leave it. They don't really
Mhm.
bellyache and carry on about it. But when you do have those shifts, whether it's getting married, whether it's getting divorced, people get divorced, and they don't see those families that they've seen for years and years and years. So there's a
Mhm.
loss there. Like I said, this year, from a political standpoint, political climate, there's going to be bare toes in the room and so people are just, there's a heightened sense of sensitivity, and
Ah,
people don't want to hurt people's feelings, but also they just, I think there's a large part of our culture that's just tired. They want
yeah.
to do what they want to do. And, maybe that means a trip to the beach, or maybe that means a cruise to wherever, or maybe that means whatever, it does get into obligation and expectation, and how comfortable people are with navigating that inside their own self, and it's not always easy, but it can be done. I didn't see my dad for several holidays, because it was not healthy for me to be around him. His his mindset, his views, his demeanor, just doesn't mean he was a horrible person. Just he wasn't, wasn't. I did not want to be in that energy.
I want to
Well,
encourage everybody who watches us to look at we're given days on this earth. How do you want to spend them? I mean, if you've got a Christmas holiday coming up, but first of all, I think taking some of the significance of it being one day, take some of that out of there. I mean, my family, because it's very difficult to find farm sitters and all that kind of stuff on Christmas, we do Merry Thanksmas, and we go either before, we do after, whatever, and we just celebrate whenever. Then I have another group of friends that probably are watching now. Elizabeth's not here, but they're most of my the I call my Loretta Lynn gang. They're on a cruise, right now, and so they're not
mhm.
here with us today. But they celebrate their Christmas on the 4th of July, because that's when they all get together for the 4th of July celebration. They put up a Christmas tree and open presents. And I said, well, that's just a cute little thing. And we call ours in my family, we call it Merry Thanksmas. And you start taking some of the, oh my gosh, the pressure off that one day or the 2 days or whatever, it's like, oh, um, because a lot of people can't take days off other times in the year. And they go, well, this is my one time a year I can actually go take a trip to the beach, or I can go to Europe, or I can do something, and I don't necessarily want to take those few days that I have off and say, I'm going to go and spend it with Uncle Sammy, or whatever. So those are all sorts of things to kind of bring into it.
Well, and I think too, if we're going to talk about just not just holidays, but if we're going to talk about holidays, I think that um, there's a big pressure for obligation, not being the one that rocks the boat. So some families get together and there's 5 or 6 people. Other families get
Mhm.
together and they come in from every corner of, the country, and they descend on a house and they stay there for a week. And, and yes, either one of those settings are fine. Some families get together, there's 2 people, but I think it is really in knowing, like you said, breaking it down. I don't, it's really challenging for me as an individual to think about, just like when people talk about Valentine's Day or Mother's Day or Father's Day, or all of those holidays. Yeah, they're great commercial holidays, but there's also a lot of unnecessary pressure to those.
Right.
I feel like our world, and I know people love gifts, but I'm oddly enough not one of those people. So my stand on that is just kind of like, well, there's a lot of commercialism to that, So then there comes obligation, right? And I think holidays do the same thing. We get into that thing where, we talked about this in our last launch date. July comes around, there's October stuff in the stores already. October
Mhm.
comes around, we just kind of skip Thanksgiving and we go straight to Christmas. And that puts this unnecessary pressure on people to, oh my gosh, I've got to start, I've got to.
Yeah, 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 I've got to. That's a disease. I've got
And
to,
it's
yeah.
like, and so then you just start chasing yourself, trying to accomplish this stuff. And it can be very much like weddings can be for people. By the time the event gets there, you're so exhausted by it, you can't wait for it to be over
Right.
because you've put a lot of time and energy. Now I know that sounds a little bah humbuggy to people, but if we're being honest, there's a lot of energy, time, and attention that goes into obligation,
Yeah.
a lot of it.
Yeah,
And
the obligation part of a holiday is you don't have to carry that.
you know what? You can have. I have clients that have their Thanksgiving is literally they do burgers and steaks and things like that. They have broken away from, I know you're originally from Louisiana, so crawfish and that kind of like there's different ways of doing things that don't
Mhm.
necessarily, if a family is struggling this year, financially or anything like that, there's so many ways that you can downsize to take that expectation and obligation um, out of your pocket.
Right.
Maybe you don't do a full turkey. Maybe you do a chicken. Maybe you do, you can do smaller things. Like there's so many different things that we can do that take away. If you've got a large house and it's hard to clean it and you've got the finances to do it, hire someone to come clean it and take that off of your list,
Mhm.
because the things that you don't process and the things that you don't talk about up front will eventually burr under and they just cause more conflict. So if you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, be able to share that. If you can
Yeah.
share it healthily with someone who has a place and the ability, the awareness to receive it, great. And if they don't, then you have to understand, well, they've never had it. So I'm not going to be mad at them because they don't have it now. Learn to
Right.
take care of our own needs.
Let's talk about other than holidays and stuff, just the whole idea of the family dynamic. When your issues start in the home, and I'm not going to say most of them do because most of them don't start in your family of origin home, but if they do, how do you start
Uh,
the
Wait,
work?
did I just hear you say that most of our issues don't start at our
No, no,
family of
I'm
origin?
saying, no, 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 that's not what I meant. What I meant was most of them probably do start in family of origin. Some of them don't, but you know, but for those that do, there we always assume that some people have done their work. That's why they're coming to this show or whatever. But a lot of people haven't started their work. How do you start work on family of origin issues? Maybe you're just sitting in the puddle of guilt and you're going, I'm a bad person because I don't think something's right with this. And I'm just not, I don't want to put up with this anymore, but it's my family. And you just haven't started. How do you start?
Well, you make a decision to start and you start. Like realistically, and I know the word, safe space is overwhelmed, especially, there's a lot of people who are, oh, safe space, whatever. But truthfully, you find someone that you can work with that is a safe space for you to be able to be comfortable and to just lay your stuff down. Now, there's a lot of people out there that think they've done their work. They've read a book or two, and because they've read a book or two, or they've watched something on TV, they think they've done their work. And if that has helped them in some way, that's fantastic. But I can assure you, if you really want to dive in, to doing your work, it takes courage to do that. Because here's the thing with that, Devon, when people start doing their work, it is inevitable that there's going to be a rift in the family because you no longer are showing up presenting as the person that they have always known you to be. And then it's, well, you must be mad, or you must be, or you must be, or you must be. And it's like, no,
Mhm. You've just
I'm just,
lost your mind.
I'm evolving.
Yeah.
And
And
that's a courageous thing to do, because it's, if you think about it, family of origin, you've known your family since you were born, right?
Mhm.
And so that is the tightest bond. Even when people say, I can't stand my family, I don't want to be around them, I'm never talking to them again. Even those folks that come with that much visceral energy, they haven't done their work. Because if they did their work, there wouldn't be that much charge behind the fact that I'm never talking to my family again. It would just be like, we see things differently. And, just because we're blood doesn't necessarily mean that we are cut from the same cloth, so to speak. And so that's one dynamic. But it takes courage. It takes finding, it takes first accountability of knowing, there are dynamics here that, don't necessarily work for me. And sometimes you can have family, groups where, one or two of the family members come on board and you guys talk things out, and it's wonderful. And other times you're not going to have that, because people are going to just be unaware. It's not that they're stubborn. It's not that they're angry. It's not that they're, whatever. It's just that they're just unaware, and you can't know what you don't know.
Well, here's something important. Your decision to start your work, your decision to find out the why behind your anxiety, your depression, your everything.
Your people
The why.
pleasing, your
Yeah.
codependency, your procrastination, all of that.
When you decide to do the work to fix you, and you can't let someone else's hurt feelings, because you are looking into yourself. Fixing you should not have a bearing on somebody else's feelings.
Right.
They should, and there's always that person, well, you're just going to blame me. Well, great, you're getting your work done, but you're just going to blame me. So where does that leave me? It's like, oh, well, I'm just such a bad person, so you're having to go get work done. Those kind of things are very damaging. Don't let that stop your quest to make a better you, because you can find your joy and you can find your happiness, even if it means someone else is going to have to be accountable for their own actions, because those are their actions. You're not blaming them. You're finding your place and how to fix you in amidst all the other.
Right. And it's not about trying to change anyone other than being willing to shift yourself.
Right.
Now, like I said earlier, it goes without saying that when you shift the way that you show up, inevitably it shifts the family dynamic. And I when I'm working with clients, I use the visual of, if you had, fallen off of a swing set when you were younger, and say you threw your back out of whack, but you didn't know it because you were younger. And as you grew, instead of your spine being straight, your spine's a little curved. And then as an adult, you're like, whew, this is really wearing on me. So I'm going to go to a chiropractor and I'm going to get an alignment. Now, when you get that alignment, your back is going to hurt for a few days because you're getting used to being in alignment. Same way with doing our work. We go through life and we're a little sideways like this. And then we start doing our work and we get an alignment, and it's uncomfortable. There's no one out there, myself included, who has ever done their work and gone, well, I'm going to just put my little apron on and start singing The Sound of Music up in the Alps somewhere. This is the best day ever. No, because inevitably you are hurting people's feelings. You know that. And it's not that you're hurting people's feelings on purpose. You just have to, as you said earlier, we have marked days in this life. And as an end-of-life doula, I can tell you, I see people pass away in their 20s, in their 30s, and in their 90s. And I don't think everyone fully understands that in order to live a rich, full life, we have to make room for being able to understand those people that are closest to us and appreciate and honor who they are, where they are, and how they are. Doesn't mean we have to fix them, help them, heal them. It just means to hold space for someone.
Mm-hmm.
So
and here's,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, here's the other side of that too. Here, some people have to do the work on themselves because they're the reason that the family doesn't work. If you've spent your life in a substance, let's say, and you've abused and you've said and done some things that are by some people's standards unforgivable, and you're going to show up, they're going to all expect the old user you to show up at a thing. You can't find forgiveness in a crowd if you never go back. You can't give forgiveness if you never go back. And so sometimes at this time of year, if you are in a recovery program, be strong in it before you go home. Be strong in it before you go, well, I'm just going to go and I'm going to make my amends. This is the first time and I'm 30 days sober and I'm just going to go. That can cause some issues within your family, and you may not do your work before you go. Do your work before you go. And it might take a little bit before you go, but be strong in your sobriety of whatever kind of sobriety you need to be before you take on something that big. I just
And
because
also know what you're walking into.
yeah.
If you are walking into a family of origin that are gaslighters, manipulators, um, fixers, people pleasers, windy whiners, whatever we want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking into that, you got to make sure that you have polished yourself. And I don't mean to be perfect when you walk in, but you've polished yourself enough to know what's yours and what's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And with that clarity, you can see, oh, they're showing up. That response was unnecessary, but whatever. You don't have to absorb it. If you are working on sobriety of any kind, and during the holidays, it can be any kind depending on your family dynamic, but most of the time it's going to either be people pleasing, overeater, alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be careful, because if you're walking into an environment where you're like, I heard somebody say this the other day and I thought it was great. Your yes means, or your yes means nothing if your no isn't in place.
Ooh.
So it's like, if you're walking into a place and you go in there going, I'm trying to be mindful and eat healthier, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a history of overindulging. And then you're going into your family of origin and they're like, try this, try this, try this. You're not eating enough. You're not eating enough. You'll find yourself people pleasing. I'll eat, I'll eat, I'll eat, I'll eat. And then you'll go home and you'll self-hate because you've betrayed yourself. If it's alcohol and you're going into an environment where you are a few months, even maybe a year sober, you're going into an environment where everybody is drinking, or most people are drinking, and they're out offering you drinks. You've got to be able to stand in your truth and say, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to shut down the people who are just, oh, come on, it's just one drink. Those are people who they're not aware. It's not that they're trying to do harm. They're just not aware of the work that it takes to be able to like yourself.
And my word to all the black sheep out there, and you've been the one who left home and you lived a life, and maybe there's some things that were hurtful to people in your family. Don't let that, being the black sheep in the past, cause you to cut your family out, because you might find more forgiveness than you expected. Um, Go in and I was wrong, promptly admit it. Do all your 12 steps when it comes to being the black sheep with your family. Now, you may find people who will not be forgiving, and if you don't get that, that's not on you. You come in, you make your amends, you make your apologies, you take responsibility for things in your life if you are that person that caused the rift in your family. Because I always say that sometimes the person who doesn't want to come home, it's not because they're the problem. Sometimes you've been the problem. And I know for me, I mean, I had to make some amends in my own family. I mean, I had perfect reasons why I did what I did, but when you go back, you put your heart out there and you say, I want to start new, and let's make some new traditions. And Um, I just don't cut your family out thinking they won't forgive, because you might be surprised. You might be surprised at how much forgiveness and how much love you will find there, because, you know, they loved you to begin with. They just didn't
Well,
want that side of you.
well, there's that, and then there's also the people who are black sheeps because they are healthy and their family is not.
Oh, well, then there's that too.
And so
Um, yeah.
they are actually labeled as the black sheep.
See,
They're labeled as the you think you know everything, you don't want to be around me, and it's the family of origin that's not doing their work. So there's there's two sides to that.
Suzanne says, make your space gathering holidays to make yourself feel happy. That's it. You should do that. It's about the joy of it's just joy. And then Jill says, yes, Teri. Jill Pavel just joined us. Hey, Jill. And Nanette joined us. Hello, Nanette. We are live today. We do a lot of vault shows. Sometimes this time of year, we all get very, very busy. Well, speaking of, we're pulling this thing to an end, and this is just the beginning of conversation. So we might get a little bit more narrow in the coming weeks, but I will speak from personal experience. If you need to make your first decision to start working on yourself, a good call to Teri Pugh. Go to terrypugh.com. Right down there. terrypugh.com. It saved my life. And it's one of the reasons that I talked to Teri and I said, please, would you carve out some time to do this show? Because I think people need to know who you are and what you do. I went through the whole therapy thing, and I found a very reputable doctor and gave her money to sit and nod. And for some people, that works. And for me,
It
it did
does.
not.
There's so many different
Mhm,
therapeutic
mhm.
modalities out there for different people, and I just will tell people right out of the gate. I am very direct. Devon can attest to this. I call bullshit, and it comes from a place of love, compassion, and all of that. However, I just told someone the other day, if in this, my hand to God, I said, if you're not willing to show up and do your work, we don't need to work together, because I'm not going to take your money. We're not going to waste our time. Like, we're just not going to do that. We're all adults, and we only have, I didn't say this part, we're all adults, and we truly only have a limited time on this earth. And if it is important enough, as challenging and as scary as it may be, to actually lean into what healthy looks like for you, what happy looks like for you, what peace of mind looks like for you, those can be challenging things when you have been guided, groomed, and lived in a bubble, that feels normal. And then at some point, your inner light goes, this doesn't, there's more. There's more. There's more for me here. So I encourage everyone, whether you call me or whether you call anyone else, make sure that the person you're working with knows what they're doing. They're credentialed to do it, and lean into taking care of you. Because when you take care of yourself, you're able to take care of all of your past traumas, wounds, issues, all of your littles, and you're also able to take care and hold space for the people that are in your life.
Well,
And yes, it is it's this time of the year brings up a lot of prickly feelings for people.
mhm.
And
Thank you,
it's,
Nanette. Thank you, Nanette. We appreciate your comment. It is the time of year when we talk about these things.
yeah. And on any
Um,
random Saturday or Monday, Nanette, we might throw it out there too. So, we just,
yeah, I did. Anybody who's taking a trip, we just like to bring that out there. It's just like I was having a talk with somebody about their situation, and it did come up. It's like, look, the last time I was home, I ruined the holiday for everybody, and I haven't wanted to go back. And I said, yep, everybody's going to be pretty tense. I said, they'll all be puckered up. They'll all be ready. I said, but go in as your healthy you. But take your knocks. Take your knocks. It's amazing how admitting you're wrong, admitting your fault, admitting that you've had a problem, how that opens a door that hasn't been opened before. But walking in not taking responsibility for your actions. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get forgiveness. It doesn't mean you're going to get forgiveness. I saw this really, really great thing earlier. There's a funny show. It's on Apple Television. If you haven't seen it, Ted McGinley is in it. Harrison Ford is in it. It's called Shrinking. If it's on Apple Television, and there is a couple, and they're talking about adopting, and one guy's he's like, I I bought a book on parenting. I want to really get it to know it and everything. And the girl was looking at him, and she's like, okay, let's get on it. She goes, okay, well, I bought the book, but I didn't read it yet. Okay. She goes, okay, I put the book in my cart on Amazon. I haven't bought the book yet. I haven't done it. I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. And, and I thought about all that stuff, being honest about a situation is like, sometimes you're just not ready. Sometimes you're just not ready. And that's okay too. And have the very best time of your life going into these holidays that you need. I mean, it's just like, sometimes you need to just take some time and have a quiet time and nourish yourself.
Yeah.
Forget everyone. I just want dumplings and dressing.
There you go. Bring your own container and get your dumplings and dressing. So
that's right.
But also, I do want to say something to that part that you just shared, Devon. And I know we need to wrap, but I just did that but thing. It's like, I know we need to wrap, but so I just negated that whole thing. I know we need to wrap, and I'm going to add this. Going into a dynamic where you're taking your knocks, so to speak, it's fine to take the things you're accountable for, but be careful, because sometimes you can go into an environment and where you might have offended other people. Now you're going up against a pack of people. And so those knocks can be unnecessarily hard. So yes, take accountability, but don't take unnecessary treatment from other people who are trying to prove. Because when some people are going in and saying, I've done, I'm here to make amends, or I did this, or I did that. First off, Christmas and Thanksgiving, that's not the time to do that shit. Like, do that like in July. Like, don't do that at the holidays, because you're just going to, you run a risk of just turning everything up on its ear. But if you're going into a situation and you are having hard conversations with people that you care about and that you love, and you're taking the knocks, at some point they have to be accountable for their part in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much about just going in and letting everybody say what they want to say and treat you the way they want to treat you because you're trying to make amends. It's about everyone being accountable. And if your family dynamic is one where, it doesn't usually happen very easily, then there's high probability that it's not going to happen on Thanksgiving or Christmas either.
Mm-hmm. And just so when you're going in to do those, whatever those amends are, just showing up, sometimes you just show up. Your sobriety it's not incumbent on somebody else's forgiveness, acceptance, understanding, or their apology for anything for your sobriety. Your sobriety is on you. Your life is on you.
What? We will even put in tandem your sobriety, your happiness, your joy, your peace of mind.
That's right.
They're all on you. They're all on you.
Because if you're waiting for somebody else's something to change for you to get your puzzle piece to fix your puzzle, your whole, ain't gonna work. It's not gonna work, because the only thing you have power over is what you do for yourself. The only power that we have in our room. And speaking of that, Teri, you want to take us home?
Sure. Well, I guess we will all be together next Wednesday, which will be the day before Thanksgiving. So that'll be fun. Everybody can chime in and tell us what they're doing, either preparing or packing and planning to go somewhere else, whatever worked for you. But yes, as you go through the rest of this week, just, take a personal accountability for where you want to be. We are getting near the year 2025, and that just seems crazy to even think that, but we're getting ready to roll up into a new year. And this is the time, October through December, when everybody starts looking at what is their new year going to look like? What do they want to do for themselves? And if personal growth and development is something that's on your list, just know that it doesn't have to be daunting. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be any of that. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can do these things and you can grow and you can evolve into the person that you have heard yourself calling to be, if that's your jam. And if you're happy where you are, that's fantastic too. But as you go through the rest of this week, just take time to reflect on what it is about yourself that you love. Not about the things that are wrong. What are the things that you actually are appreciative of about yourself? And make note of that. And if you do make note of that and you want to share that with us next week, we'd love to have you come back and do that and share those things, because I think that's a lovely thing to do. And if you are interested in joining one of the last 2 Monday nights women's groups that we have going on, that will be at the last Monday of this month. And if you want to know more about that, leave a message below or shoot me an email on teripugh.com and I'll send you the link for it. And other than that, I've got it rained here earlier and the duck feet got wet. So I'm going to go out and put my duck feet down. And while I do that, I'm going to say bon voyage. And I hope you all increase your peace.
Bye.